I will never forget her kiss, the dragon's kiss or Tiamat's kiss. Whenever Tiamat kisses someone, she eventually does that to only her children. And I will read you from something from my Book of Dragon Shadows, something that I wrote from my encounter with Tiamat. Tiamat inside of a realm, an unknown dimension that I just don't know where she was or where I was. I just was in a place that I just can say that there was a lot of nature, but I did not understand where I was. Inside of her, to be very honest, this actually makes me emotional whenever I think back of the encounter with Tiamat that I had. I'm telling you actually this because it might help someone, because Tiamat or the other dragon gods can shape your entire path, and whenever this happens, the dragon will let themselves be known. The dragon gods will let themselves be known. In my Book of Dragon Shadows, I wrote that I was inside of my of course I knew about the dragon back then. I knew about my guardian by my side. I was already on the dragon's path, but I did not know about the dragon gods. And the dragon gods, that all of them, of course, whenever Tiamat arrived, the air was completely different. The air was, and I recognized the air. I recognized the air from the dragon realms. Whenever I was in the dragon realm, I could smell, I could feel the air of the dragon realm whenever I was close to Tiamat. Whenever I was close to this unknown dragon, because I knew that there was a dragon close by that was not the dragon only by my side, but this was a complete different dragon. But I felt so happy, I felt so chaotic, there was like a whirlpool of emotions coming through. My dragon actually did nothing at that moment. My dragon actually said nothing. It was like my dragon made place for this new dragon, and this new dragon was later that I came to find out that this was the goddess Tiamat. Tiamat is a goddess from ancient Babylonia, very much worshipped back in the day, but not anymore because of religions, because of this. And Tiamat is actually a very unknown goddess, very much forgotten, actually, you can say. In my Book of Dragon Shadows, I wrote that I felt so happy, I felt so lucky, I felt so, everything. I could handle the world whenever I could feel it. And whenever I had a vision from Tiamat back then, of course. I shared it with you, some of it. That she was an enormous dragon with large wings that were and she was floating in the air, and she was actually in a place where there was like a forest, but she wasn't touching the trees, she wasn't touching the ground, she was hovering over it. And I was seeing her, and I was split in two by some reason. I was split in two. The other hand said, "Wow, what a beautiful dragon! I love it." And the other hand said, that was actually different. It was actually sad to see her. Sad actually that I was just from both sides wanted to hug her, wanted that she hugged me, and she did not actually move at all because she had a blanket with her hands, and I was with her hands very careful, and I was closing by with her, but not walking. I was not walking, I was hovering over it. I was not touching the ground, just same as her. I was just approaching her, and I wanted to see what this blanket was, but not before I see that it was a dragon claw. You know, back in the day, I had a lot of trouble with people that claimed themselves to be a dragon. I said, no one is worthy of the dragon. And whenever I saw this, I said, oh my goodness. And that was the same claw as I saw before in the dragon realm. I could very much see the same color, the same brown color, and the other hand, I see this whenever I was removing this blanket. I could see, oh my goodness, that's me that she held. I felt so, like I said, I felt much more. Yeah, in my Book of Dragon Shadows, I felt surprised, but also, yeah, I knew what she was actually saying with this. But on the other hand, the other hand said, no, and that was so surprising for me. Actually, I wrote in my Book of Dragon Shadows that I was so split in two. The other hand was so happy, and the other hand was so emotional and sad and angry even. And I could remember, I could look back at the face of Tiamat, and Tiamat had from this draconic eye, and I loved to see it. was so beautiful, and horns, amazing horns. And she was of course very scaly, but she had a large wing that she wasn't even using. She was just floating over it, and as well as me. And I could write in my book of Dragon Shadows that I was looking at her face with mixed emotions. Whenever Tiamat comes, it's always chaos, always, because chaos means freedom, but chaos is as well that you need to shape it for yourself. So put the puzzle pieces together. That is what the entire path is all about. Put the puzzle pieces together, and whenever Tiamat comes, she gives you a puzzle and you have to put it together. That is what the entire path is of the dragon, especially when Tiamat is your main goddess. Tiamat is an enigma. It's a complete puzzle, and you have to understand what it's all about. So now in my book of Dragon Shadows, I could have some theories what this actually was. This was a life that was in between the dragon realm and the physical realm here. In between. This was what my theory was. This was a transmission. This was actually an old dragon self. I have to admit it, sorry. I have to admit it, this old dragon actually that's had a new time to come. And I could recognize the baby as myself because this was a vision. I already had a life as a human. So I could recognize it, and I saw in Tiamat's eyes that she was actually, that I came to understand, this is my mother. This is my creator. Of course not my human mother, but my spirit's mother. As she was looking at my eyes, and that is how you can see your dragon spirit, into your eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul. And I was so sad. I was like, no. And on the other hand, I was actually afraid of my other side, because he was so aggressive, and he was so he was so I was a little bit afraid of it, and I was afraid of doing something wrong for him. On the other side, I was so split in two, in more than once, more than two even. It was like there are several spirits at the same time in the same body. And I was hovering over all of this greenery, all alongside with Tiamat, looking into my eyes. And she came closer with her face, and I did not mention this. She came closer with her face, with her draconic face that she has, and closer to me, and I was so sad. I was going to die. I'm feeling that I was going to die. I felt that I was dying. Really, I felt that I was dying, and in her presence, I did not mind that at all. Actually, she was still holding myself as a human baby, and she was coming closer with her face to mine, and she was touching her face with my face, and I could feel my own face, that it was that of a dragon, but it was changing into that of a human, and she was changing as well into that of a human. She was standing before me. I was opening my eyes. I could see her, still the same eyes, but now her presence was completely different. She had dark brown hair, and she was completely naked. She didn't have clothes on, but she was completely in brown hair like I have now, completely the same, not black, but more like brown. And she was actually smiling at me. She was and giving me this hug, because as well as we were both naked at that moment, that she was actually giving the hug that I already wanted from the start. Giving the hug, and that is how we actually going down on the floor. That is the rest that I remember. That is how she was holding down. She still had her wings, but she was a human at that moment, holding me. And then I opened my eyes, and I felt so connected. I had to know what her name was. Eventually I came to find out that her name was Tiamat, also being called Ghana. She is the earth itself. Ghana means the earth. She is the earth, and everything of the sea is her as well. She is actually God. She is the goddess that no one worships, and she eventually I could understand from it, this enigma, that I had to puzzle pieces together, that this was actually a transmission and her last goodbye to her son before he was born. And that is what's happening with all of us. I did not want to admit that because I don't want people to say that they are dragons at that moment. I felt that humans are not worthy of it until Tiamat showed me that there are humans that are her children, like myself, like you are, my brother or sister, that you can eventually also can encounter Tiamat. But Tiamat doesn't wish to call her a god. She wishes just that you recognize her as the mother as she is, because she's the mother of the serpents and the dragons, and she just comes to us always. She will always be present because God is everywhere, in this case the goddess. And it made me, still to this day, very emotional of what happened there. It was like a dream, but I felt I was dying and being born at the same time, at the same moment. And Tiamat showed herself to show myself that she will always be connected to me and to all of the other dragons and humans that are following the dragon. My brothers and sisters, this is much more than a spirituality. This is an experience. This is an emotion. This is something that we follow. We follow our heart. We follow our spirit. We follow what we are. We follow our own mind. We don't follow other humans. We don't follow other religions. This is not a religion. This is a complete difference from a religion. True gods let themselves be known. And that is eventually what Tiamat did. Tiamat let herself be known. And she doesn't wish to call her a god or a goddess, even though I do it because of my human face in this world. But eventually she is the creator of all dragons and the creator of you, who you are to this day. And I hope that there will be a day that you will encounter her or the other dragon gods, because the other dragon gods, it might seem that I talk more about Tiamat. That is simply because she's my main goddess. It can be that your god or your main god, or it can be Leviathan or Quetzalcoatl or Fafnir or Shenlong. It can be that they are your main gods and they will eventually shape your entire path. But in my case, it's Tiamat that shaped my entire path. And whenever I see something from her, I had to write it down in my book of Dragon Shadows, and I'm so happy that I did. But in the end, I will in the end never forget it. Even if I wrote it down, I will never forget every detail what happened when I encountered Tiamat, Dragon Goddess. It was a kiss of the Dragon God.